Welcome back, squad. Today we're hitting 5 quarterbacks to draft in fantasy this season. Let's go. Welcome back, squad. Like I said, 5 fantasy quarterbacks to get this year. Let's just jump right in. Number 1 is a little bit lower than I would have liked him to be, and that's Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert is currently QB 13 according to ESPN. I have him ranked at number 10. Is that a big difference? No. Is that big of a deal? Not really, but here's what I like about him. He still is Justin Herbert, right? He's still that dude who can gunsling, who can throw the ball. He has lost wide receiver weapons. That's undeniable. They are going to run the ball more. That's very true. I think they're kind of going to be trash next year. I think they're going to have to throw the ball. And I think they're going to have a lot of growing pains of we can't just rely on 29-year-old Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins coming off an ACL and an Achilles tear. I think we have to throw the ball, and we have to trust our best player on the field to do that. Herbert finished 11th in average fantasy points per game last season, and I expect that number to be around the same. He averaged 18.5 fantasy points per game last season, and that was with his injury week. If you take out the week he was injured and left early when he had 2.8 fantasy points, he shoots up to quarterback 5 in average fantasy points per game. Do I think he's a top 5 dude? No, not necessarily. He's throwing to QJ and a rookie. But they're going to have to throw the ball, and he's the best guy on that field. They need to use him to win games. Herbert is undervalued. Up next is one that's pretty wild to me, Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is rated as QB 18, according to ESPN, behind Deshaun Watson, behind Kirk Cousins, behind Caleb Williams. And you might say, well, yeah, he's not that good. He lost Calvin Ridley. I don't trust him. And that's fair. He did lose Ridley. He wasn't amazing last season. Lawrence last season finished as QB 13 overall, and he finished as QB 17 in average fantasy points per game. Here's the thing that helps me out here. He missed a game, right? So he just completely missed a game as a quarterback, and he had 2 finishes below 10 fantasy points. Now, do I trust Gabe Davis? No. Jesus Christ. No. God, no. I like Christian Kirk, though. And I like that they got Brian Thomas. I'm going to trust Evan Ingram gets more catches next year. Etienne's still in the backfield. He'll get some catches. This offense is different, and they've lost Ridley. But I think Lawrence is still going to be okay. Do I think he's top 5, top 8, top 10? No, not really. But Lawrence isn't afraid to run the ball. I don't think they're going to be winning a lot of games. Maybe an average amount of games. But I don't see them blowing out their opponents. I don't see them forcing them to go to the ground game to run the ball. Etienne's not that guy, and the Jaguars aren't that good. I think they're fine. They're a fine team, but they're going to have to throw the ball, especially when they play teams like the Texans and the Colts, who are these high-powered offenses. And, the Titans, if their quarterback doesn't throw like a duck. Am I saying he's a top 10 guy? No, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying Lawrence is way undervalued here. I will absolutely take him above that price. Up next, ESPN has him as QB 15. It's the rookie Jaden Daniels. The 2 main reasons I like Jaden Daniels, the offensive coordinator, Cliff Kingsbury, and he runs the ball to the moon. Kingsbury has worked with Kyler Murray before. He's had a rushing quarterback. He knows how to utilize him. Jaden Daniels is Kyler Murray pre-ACL tear. I'll show you what I mean. Jaden Daniels had a game where he rushed for 234 yards in one game. One game. Against Florida. I'm not talking about Alabama A&M here. Florida. Daniels threw for a touchdown in every single game he played as well. But more so, I love his rushing upside. He had 2 games where he had below 10 rushing attempts all season. He averaged 94.5 yards on the ground as a quarterback. Now, he won't get that much in the NFL, obviously. That's way too high. And they're going to want him to throw more as a quarterback. But if he rushes for half that total, right, puts him at about 5-6 fantasy points, throws for 2 touchdowns, right there you've got 15-16 points. That's very easy to do if you have a rushing quarterback. QB 15 is low for me. I like him a lot. And while I get his QB 15 ranking, I would be very content taking him at QB 15. He has much more rushing upside than people going in that round, like Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, both coming off Achilles injuries. He is like the opposite of those men. I'm buying Jaden Daniels. Up next, someone I think is a little bit undervalued, Kyler Murray. Now, Murray didn't play till week 10, but he finished as QB9 in average fantasy points per game. ESPN has him as QB10. Now, I think the range is about right on him, but I think the upside is way higher. Another year removed from his ACL injury, he's going to trust that knee more. He's going to run on it more, I think, and he's going to have more confidence in the cutting and the turning that the ACL requires. Last season, he had one game below 15 fantasy points, and he's getting Marvin Harrison Jr. as a really solid option, and sleeper Zay Jones, my favorite Zay Jones. He averaged almost 19 fantasy points per game last season. He tucks in just below Brock Purdy in that number. Purdy was at 19.2. Murray's at 18.9. But I trust Murray to have that upside with the rushing next season. I think he's going to come back ready to fire. Murray has the potential for to be top 5, top 6 upside with his rushing ability. I like his price. If I can get him at QB10, I'm stoked. And then probably my favorite man on this list, the ever wonder that is Joe Flacco. Yes, he's a backup. Yes, he's old. Obviously, you're not drafting him as your starter. Anthony Richardson is coming off a season-ending surgery. Joe Flacco was third in average fantasy points per game last season on the Browns. Flacco averaged almost 22 fantasy points per game last season, and while he's not going to rush for you ever, because that man has no knees, he will throw, and he knows how to read a defense. He knows what he's doing. If I'm getting a backup, Joe Flacco is easily one of my favorite backup options. Richardson's going to run the ball, and he's going to be their QB1, but if anyone is going to get hurt, it's those rushing QBs, right? It's Anthony Richardson, it's Lamar. Those are the ones who scare me the most for injury. Joe Flacco's a safe bet backup. You know what you're getting. You're getting a very solid amount, and it was a small sample size, but I trust Joe Flacco to lead that offense, and they trust him to lead the offense if need be. Let's look at his rushing totals for fun. Against Jacksonville, he had 4 rushing attempts for -1 yards. Nice. Against Chicago, he had 1 rush for -1 yards, probably a kneel. Against Houston, he had 2 rushes for 1 yard. Hey, positive. Against the Jets, he had 2 rushes for 3 yards. Rushing quarterback Joe Flacco. Look out. Again, you're not taking him as your QB1. This is way deep leagues, backup option. I just like Joe Flacco. He's fun. He's old. That man is 39 years old. He's out of Delaware. You can't not love Joe Flacco. I mean, come on. Take Joe Flacco. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Let me know what QBs you are high on this incoming season. Stay tuned. We got more coming. Running backs, tight ends, wide receivers. Bye.